One of my favorite parts of book launches are always the authors reading, both in terms of the choice of the material that they make to read in public. And also when I hear authors read their own material, it makes me teary-eyed. So Nicole, if I could turn the floor over to you right now to read from your piece, Come Take a Walk with Me.
Thanks, Gail. First of all, I'll say that I chose to do a poem for my piece. It wasn't my first choice. I think I sort of said, I think I'm going to do freedom. And then, we had a lot of people wanting to write about freedom. And I said, okay, well, I can write under other themes too. But I think the most significant thing I did was to sort of lay claim or proclaim that I was going to do a poem. And when I did that, my sister said, yes, you have to do it. So I had no chance to back down. So the challenge was, how can I actually write about pain in a poetry form? And I also felt, at the time, I didn't feel that sense of pain. So it was trying to conjure up those feelings that I think I experienced, especially early on in my career. I shall pass through this world but once. Any good, therefore, that I can do, or any kindness that I can show to any human being, let me do it now. Let me not defer or neglect it, for I shall not pass this way again. Nestled between the pages of the Book of Psalms in my late mom's The New Oxford Annotated Bible, this verse is written on worn beige cardstock, upon which is an image of an open gate. These words neatly inset. How it came into her possession is unknown, with utmost care held in plastic sleeve, a precious message it held. This verse speaks to me as if tucked away in the abyss of me, as if sucked into every cell and fiber of me. These words captivate and speak to me, because it's who I am and aspire to be. 'Tis pain and hurt unveiled. A sector holding closely to its charitable roots, doing good deeds and serving those in most need, outwardly facing, on surface appearing, all compassion and caring, purity and goodness overflowing. But alas, that veneer is peeling. The story that's been told is incomplete. Curtain call reveals secrets concealed underbelly of injustices born on branches. Supremacy of whiteness has taken firm root, even here. This verse speaks to me as if tucked away in the abyss of me, as if sucked into every cell and fiber of me. These words captivate and speak to me, because it's who I am and I aspire to be. 'Tis pain and hurt, break. A reckoning well overdue. Now is the time for heeding advice. Truth be told, the system impotent can do no harm or deliver blows without its enablers, defenders, and those in comfort of complacency's arms. Cause as surely as it hurts others, it's bamboozled, self-anointed belongers, planting seeds of hatred, sprouting white superiority instead of seeds of equity and or shared humanity. Oppression and exploitation doesn't have to be our final destination. This verse speaks to me as if tucked away in the abyss of me, as if sucked into every cell and fiber of me. These words captivate and speak to me, because it's who I am and aspire to be.
Thank you so much, Nicole. Thank you so much for your poetry.
Thanks, Gail.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Camila, you wrote about freedom, and in us, I find freedom. Do you feel ready to read your piece now?
Yes, I am. But I have to start by saying that we've been waiting for Nicole, for hearing Nicole read her own piece for months. So I had to breathe in and out before I read mine because this was beautiful. Thank you, Nicole. A lot of my experience, and when I talk about it, it brings me back, it always brings me back to my background. So it brings me back to Brazil, to my family, to many experiences that I lived there, and many of the things that my parents tried, and I would say successfully, it did in teaching us and preparing us for a different world. Um, so here's my piece. Often it has been too difficult to address some issues. Those instances would immediately bring me back to my childhood, when my mom would emphasize the importance of standing up for ourselves, not letting our race or gender speak higher than our truth and our beliefs. But how do you do that when you have so much at stake? I had friends who lost their jobs because they were vocal about racism and the dissatisfaction they felt in their jobs. How do you stand up when you're feeling alone? Should you take that risk? I've always had the courage to voice and stand up for what I believe. But at a younger age, it was easier when I had a strong support system to lift me up. This was different, however, and circumstances can change everything. So some circumstances challenge you personally, and after a while for me, doubt crept in. I found myself overthinking past career decisions. This was uncomfortable and forced me to rethink my career choice in the nonprofit sector. A very good friend of mine said, Camila, you bring such unique experience and insights to our work. Don't let them affect your passion and commitment, because the work you do is from your heart and done with excellence. Some spaces are just not ready for people like us. She's also Black. And they will try to suppress and oppress us by undermining our work and our contributions. We can decide to leave those organizations and go elsewhere where they see us and value us more. Quote, as Black women, we're always given these seemingly devastating experiences that could absolutely break us. But what the caterpillar calls the end of the world, the master calls the butterfly. What we do as Black women is take the worst situations and create from that point. End quote, Viola Davis. One thing I knew for sure was that I had to bring my full self back. I wanted to, and I needed to find my freedom. But part of me was missing. I was doing work that I believed in, but something was missing. I wanted to belong, to feel part of a community that would have my back and understand where I'm coming from, a community that could understand my struggles and challenges. I was missing a place where I could be my true self. And I went there.
Thank you so much. That's so lovely. And you've so wrapped up the essence of your piece, I think, in the part of it that you chose to read. Absolutely beautiful, Camila. And Nneka, take us home, will you, with our love is our only freedom.
Well, I just want to say to Nicole, I'm so glad to have heard your poem. I mean, I've only begged for her to recite it for us quite a number of times, and this was the first time. And your verse, the way you've recited it, is nearly how I could hear it when I would read it. It's just so perfect. And Camila was one of the people who was very adamant about writing about freedom. Like she's like, you're not taking this from me. I'm writing about this. And I'm so glad she did, because the story that she had to share was really important for us all to hear, and for all of us to appreciate and to realize the impact that our gathering as a community has on her. So I feel a tremendous burden around bringing it home, but I will just simply read two small excerpts from my story. And as I said, my challenge to myself was to write to an exclusively Black audience. And so mine is a love letter to Black people. Sisters and brothers, I recognize that despite the courage we demonstrate in our daily lives, fear remains a reality for Black people. And this is justified. After all, in Canada, we live, work, and play in mainly white spaces. White people do not know Black people, our culture, our language, our value. It is white people who control the majority of what governs our lives, including our charitable endeavors through government funding and private philanthropy. Nelson Mandela said, "May your choices reflect your hopes, not your fears." We must be vigilant because this fear can impede progress, transformation, and ultimately freedom. What is the essence of freedom? At its heart, freedom is love. Not the kind of love that is warm and fuzzy and gives you goosebumps and makes you feel good, although it can be that. What I'm talking about is love that intrinsically informs your self-worth, that reminds you of your purpose and tells you the truth of whom you are. Love reminds us of our strength as a people because of what we have survived. A love that proclaims that we are talented and that we harbor many solutions. Love, there is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear. We must meet the moment. You have something precious to share, and it is rooted in a rich tradition of love. Our historical context gives us a unique capacity to wade in the deep waters of tragedy, opposition, and change.
Mm. Ooh.
That's inspiring and beautiful. All of your pieces are beautiful, all so different, and a taste of what I think
Little taste.
We have a number of the author contributors with us today, and we have a little bit of time to open up our discussions to some questions. Did anybody feel by writing this piece that was going to be in a book, that was going to be marketed in a fairly significant way with your names attached, feel that they were risking their jobs or future employment because of the writing in the book?
Well, I can tell you, I didn't fear risking my job because, in fact, I lost my job during this period of time, and so my business emerged, which I'm happy to say. I do know that fear is real for some who've written. And I think that, there's nothing unique about that for Black people. We have to be cautious and careful and strategic about when we share and how we share. And so I believe that all the authors made very, strategic decisions to share what they shared. And we're living in a really unique moment in which there is greater space and room for us to share. And maybe an added level of security of sorts, which I don't think will be lasting very long, quite frankly. But I think we're in a unique moment where we have the opportunity to share and people are sharing. Although I'm quite sure, and I know from some authors, there is a palpable fear around what people will think.
Gail, I'd like to answer that if you don't mind. This is Birgit.
Hey, Birgit.
Hey. So I'm too old now. I've been on this journey. Just I'm coming to a point where I am thinking about retirement. And so maybe 10 years ago, I may have paused before sharing this so personally about my experience you know, of being a person of color on this journey in my profession. But I was more concerned, if concerned is the right word, just about exposing what has been so personal to me. That's a part of who I am, and opening it up for any criticism or, comments, opinions that I wasn't sure I really cared to know, what anybody might think. So it was just being vulnerable and being so personal and so open. And, we just don't want anybody to be negative about it. So that's the only thing. But at a certain point when I was writing it, because I was in Michigan where my sort of life in the US began, and it became freeing. And so I was like, what this is, I was, it's like pages and pages and pages and pages. I had to cut back. So it was very liberating. And so I'm like, it is what it is. There you are. So.
Yeah.
If I could comment on that as well, Gail, thank you for your question and for this. It's Marva. Just so honored, and this is just overwhelmingly wonderful. I agree with Birgit. There was that fear initially, but so what? And my fear wasn't what I wrote necessarily, because not unlike Nneka, and I think a number of us who have moved on from that job where you're always being tested and told that you are not good enough or you're too good, and move on to the consulting world and in other worlds where you can be the person that charts your own course. I didn't have that heavy fear or that burden, but I know that in the consulting world, clients can be fickle. And I have to say that the secret of not knowing what everybody else wrote, a little part of me was saying, I've been telling everybody about this book. What if somebody wrote, like I work on in the midst of allyship, right?
Right.
You need to bring it, and we're creating safe space and a place of grace so that people can share and tell their stories, so they know I'm opening to hear their fears. And I want us all to lean in. That's the work that I do. And so what if folks are working to say, well, pox on all your houses. What if that's some of the other stories in the book that may not necessarily jive with what my thought process, my values, my work, and what I do. And then I thought, again, to heck with it. It is what it is. And we're telling our story in the most authentic place, because above everything else, being able to authentically tell our stories, regardless of how it's received, is one of the most important things in the world. And this was an opportunity for that. So it no longer mattered. I just celebrated that I got a chance to get it out. But I do know that there are churches and pulpits where I might not be welcomed, and that's okay. I probably shouldn't be there anyway.
Good.
Yeah, this is Christal. I just want.
Oh, hi, Christal. Hi.
This is so wonderful. I am so excited. I feel like I want to drink. Is it too early to drink?
No, I'll join you, Christal. Christal, I got you.
For me, I felt fearful of what might happen if I didn't share my story. I felt like there was some other women who may have experienced. I just kept thinking about them, because I remember so many years I felt shame for what was happening. I felt pain, and I thought I was feeling it alone. I didn't know that there were so many other women who were also going through some of the things that I was going through. And so I just kept thinking, for those who might still be where I was, now knowing that there were others who felt their pain, who had some same lived experiences, I felt an obligation to share my experience, so that others coming behind me, maybe some who may be young in their career, who are going through some things, for them to kind of stand up and own their own experience, and realizing that they do have some power and say about how their careers can go, and what they're willing to accept and what they're willing not to accept. I think there's this fear that you have to accept what's given out to you, and for you to get to the point where you can walk away and say, you know what, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm not going to do this. Which is where I got to when I actually walked off a job without a job one day, and would have never done that years earlier. You've always told you never walk off a job without a job. Are you crazy? You have bills, you have responsibilities. But I felt like that job that I was in was going to take me out. And I realized I didn't have to do that anymore. So for those people who are in those places now in their lives, I had to write. So thank you.
Thank you, Christal. And I'm so glad you did write. Christal's piece, I believe, if I'm remembering right, is the first chapter in the book.
Marva too. Marva's in the first chapter.
Oh, it's Marva.
Too.
Sorry.
Marva and Christal, it's both of them. They're both in the first chapter.
Both in the first, yeah, that's right. Both in the first chapter. And that means that they'll just get you started. They'll just get you smooth. They're joyful.
And after you read Marva's story, you'll understand why she said she may not be welcome in some places.
Yes, and then I had to explain to my daughter what the joy of sex is.
Oh.
Now that was interesting. I didn't see that coming.
Right. Now there's a little tease for anyone who's decided not yet to buy the book. Right on, Marva. You see how happy that makes Jim Hilborn? He's laughing now.
Hi, Jim.
Jim, Marva, Jim. What a thrill. And I know there's other author contributors on the call, and I'm so delighted. We're so delighted for everybody to be on our Zoom meeting today. I have a question that for Christal, actually, and that is, do you have the answer to how you came to that decision?
I was physically ill. My blood pressure had jumped up pretty high. I was having trouble sleeping. I had this perpetual twitch in my eye that would not go away. And that was kind of the impetus for it. But I just kept saying to myself, I'm better than this. You know, I can do more. And this person who's making me physically ill, she's so much younger than me and naive, and she doesn't even realize that she's doing this to me, and I'm giving her the power to do it. And so I had to just take back my own power and just say, I can't do this anymore. And it was a scary decision. But as I was walking to the parking lot with my duffel bag with my belongings, I just kept saying to myself, you're a bold bitch. You're a bold bitch. You don't have no job. You don't have no job. But I kept moving. I just kept putting one foot in front of the other, and I just said, keep it moving, keep it moving. And I drove out of that parking lot, and I never looked back. And who does that?
You do that. That's right.
But anyway, I had to make a decision, and it had to be me. It just had to be me. I had to make a decision that was going to be best for me, and I knew I was going to be okay. So.
You're getting a lot of high fives in the chat right now. A lot of people going home tonight thinking, okay, it can be done. Yeah.
Well, Gail, I just wanted to add, Christal's piece was the first piece that we received. And we went like, well, if this is going to be how it's going to be, this is going to be off the chart. So I'm just saying.
You know, you get to the point when you know, when you interview for your next job, you know what questions to ask. Questions you didn't ask previously. You know, and you just kind of let them know who you are, and just, am I going to be welcomed here? This is who I am. Am I going to be welcomed in this space? And, you know, you get silence when you ask that question, because I don't think the interviewer is expecting you to ask that question. But, you know, when you say, look, I'm a bold Black woman from New York City. I'm 6 feet tall. I'm 6 feet tall and I'm bald, and I'm going to speak my mind. Am I welcome in this space? And I get complete silence. And one guy in the interview kind of hesitated. And at that point, I said, you know, thank you very much. I'm no longer interested in this role.
Good for you.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Well, the the quality of the authors, as you can hear, is amazing. Their stories are brilliant. We all want everybody to buy a copy of Collecting Courage, read Collecting Courage, buy it for everybody that you think should have a copy for Christmas or Kwanzaa or Hanukkah or just whatever.
Whatever.
You know.
Yeah.
Yes.
I can tell by my brother's body language, the only man who wrote in the book, he's got something to say. I could tell he's just being real polite. But I know you got something to say, brother. Come on.
Okay, Mide, you can.
Okay. No, not at all. Gosh, what could I say? I just feel privileged for the opportunity to be asked and to write. It was the first time I've ever written anything about my personal experience. Usually, you know, I'm the kind of guy who takes it in and is very quiet about it. But I'll share one thing though. I've read all the stories and I love them. And I've read mine several times and it feels as though somebody else wrote my story.
Wow.
It feels, because I've never, you know, apart from conversation with a friend occasionally about racism and the oppression I face, I generally don't talk about it. So when I read about this guy who has been through these experiences and his stories, I've got to kind of just bring myself to the fore and say, oh, that's actually me. And I was talking to my daughter yesterday who had read the stories, and she told me that she felt very emotional, that it brought her to tears because she didn't know that I had experienced this level of racism and exclusion and isolation and rejection, because I generally just don't, you know, I don't talk about it in any great degree. So that's all I'll say, really, that I continue to be surprised about the story that I tell, and it feels like an out-of-body experience, really. But also I'm enraged by what this guy had to go through, and I'm enraged by what my sisters have to go through. And you know, I think, Gail, you asked the question around action. If there's one thing that I hope everybody gets out of this, it is the spur to act, to minimize in their own very personal way anti-Black racism in the nonprofit sector, because it's time.
That
Wow.
that the one thing, this book, and a decision was made that the primary audience for this book would be Black people working in philanthropy or charity or I mean, and most people who write in this book are working at an executive level. So, but it also, for white people who read this book, and I'm one of them who's read it many times, is that the scenarios, the scenes, and Mide, you are your piece, it does this very clearly and journalistically, almost, you know, paints those pictures. You've been at meetings. White people have, I mean, what you describe has been done in the presence and at the, with white people doing it. There are meetings where people have seen the kinds of things that go on. So if people, generally white people, want some definition of what, you know, we can talk about structural racism another day, but if people want a description of what everyday racist behavior looks like, then there's hundreds of examples in this book, and that you see play out today, yesterday, tomorrow. So it will really, you know, people who are reading it with an open heart and an open mind will read these hugely emotional, entertaining, loving, inspirational stories, but we'll also learn what racism looks like. And I hope collectively we can make some kind of contribution to that, and it can be the beginning of a conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Gail, can I say someone needs to tweet that part out? I put it in the chat. If you want to see what everyday racism looks like, there are hundreds in this book. I think that's a tweetable call to action. I know in the work that I do, people always want to say, give me an example of microaggression. What are some things that you can think of? And sometimes I'm really tired of repeating this. But handing this book, actually today I did a session and it was, here's a book that you need to read to fully understand, to take it to the next level from what I've left with you. I can only do so much, and here's something that will help you go the next leg of the journey. It's not a formalized kind of antiseptic way of dealing with systemic racism. It gets you in there, right? It gets you in there. It's down, it's dirty, it's real story. It's not fictional. It's not, it's not set up in a way that it's not accessible. It's completely accessible, and we can all relate to it or say, I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be that person, so help me. And I think this book does that. So thank you for the opportunity.
Bless you all, one and all, for your contribution to this terrific, terrific book. I think that we all feel really proud in our associations with it and our associations with you. The fact that we have shared this experience together will never go away. We will always have this experience. And we're just launching. It's like, it's just starting. So I want to thank you for coming. Thank you for writing. Thank you for the power of words and the power of personal narrative to be able to change things. We can have more of these discussions, but we're going to bring this one now to an end. We'll be back. It's collectingcourage.org. These ladies are on a mission. This is just beginning. There's going to be merchandise. There's going to be more stories. There's going to be stuff happening. We're collecting courage now. You take care. God bless.
Everyone. Thanks, Gail.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks.